This is CBC Windsor News. I'm Chris Henson. Katarina's away tonight. Here's what's making news right now.
Over the last few years, online gambling has become highly problematic, especially since the brick and mortar casinos have not been available.
What happened here is that the industry won the day in terms of pushback on this regulation by the extension of the timelines, rather than the community who had asked for the timelines to be advanced.
Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini!
I have someone in Mariupol. They're bombing now. I'm really worried about them.
Thanks for joining us. Legal online gambling is coming to Ontario next month. It's called iGaming, something the province says will provide a safer environment on the internet. But some are concerned that this will lead to more people becoming addicted to gambling. The CBC's Jason Vio joins us live with more. Jason, where's that concern coming from?
Well, it comes from the accessibility of gambling on your phone or on a computer rather than going to a physical casino like here at Caesars Windsor. And that was one of the biggest factors really fueling Chris Fogelin's gambling addiction was the easy access. He's a 42-year-old construction worker from here in the city of Windsor. And he says he's been hooked to illegal online gambling for the last 16 years. And Fogelin is a sports guy, so he would find himself betting on games and matches. And at first, he says it started out slow and small, where he would just play on weekends or for major sporting events. But he says that quickly spiraled out of control, where some days he would place upwards of 20 bets in a single day. Since 2006, he estimates he's lost between $1 or $2 million, a few $1 million, gambling in this manner. And he worries now that the province is introducing this new legal online gambling platform that more people may fall down and follow a similar path.
Online, it just made it so much more accessible and easy for me to play. Like, I can wake up in the morning, be waiting for the bus for 6 minutes, and I can bet $50 on a sporting event. It got so bad that instead of like buying a loaf of bread to make a sandwich, I would place a sports bet, hoping that by chance I would win and I would have triple the money that I would have really started with. I ended up in dark places in my life as the disease progressed. My relationships with my immediate family and extended family is totally tarnished. I've lost trust from my parents, from my siblings, legal issues. I've been homeless on account of using my rent money to gamble instead of paying my rent. The bottom line is this disease has brought me down to the depths of hell, basically, right? And there's only one way bet up for me now.
Now, Fogelin says his rock bottom was being criminally charged with theft and fraud in relation to his gambling addiction. Another big eye-opener for him, you heard him there saying he was homeless at one point. He says that was a big turning point for him as well. And he also says he struggled with drug and alcohol issues while all of this was going on.
Jason, he really opened up there. That's something very personal for him to share with us. How is Chris Fogelin doing now?
Well, he's in his third week of a 3-week intensive care gambling addiction program over at Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare. And one of the counselors in that program says the creation of this provincial legal online gambling program to her is highly concerning. And she's betting that it will, in fact, increase the number of people becoming addicted to gambling.
They're very, very surprised at how seductive online play is and how quickly they lose their money and how quickly they become sucked into the game. Because, hours could pass and they're not even realizing that hours have passed. It only feels like a few minutes to them. And there can be a great deal of damage done in those couple hours.
She says one big red flag that somebody is experiencing a gambling addiction is when they start to spend money on gambling that is allocated for other things like rent, as we heard Chris Fogelin did, or if it's allocated for savings and they start to gamble that money away. And if you or someone you know is experiencing a gambling addiction, there are resources, as we talked about, that are available in our community, Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare being one of them. They have a phone number that you can call, and also the province has an Ontario gambling hotline as well. Chris.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for the insight and those support lines as well. Jason Vio live tonight in front of the casino. The introduction of online gambling in Ontario also has implications for brick and mortar casinos like Caesars Windsor. Unifor Local 444 President Dave Cassidy says that there are still about 1,000 workers laid off due to the pandemic, and he says there's mixed feelings about the new iGaming platform.
People who are using the iGaming side of it on an app will also create points, from Caesars, their total rewards program. So they'll be able to create those points, which they'll be able to spend at Caesars as well. So people who normally really didn't go to the casino will potentially go to the casino. So, there's a good evil there if you think about it.
Now, in an email to CBC, Caesars Windsor says that it's looking forward to the launch of iGaming because it's another option for people who aren't physically at the casino. When asked if they're worried that the online platform will affect jobs or revenue inside the casino, they say it's too early to speculate. The provincial government has given oil refineries in Ontario 2 more years to reduce sulfur dioxide emissions. The government originally set a compliance deadline last November as the end of 2026, but it has now given the industry until the end of 2028. Dale Molnar reporting on the environmental law charity that's upset.
Sulfur dioxide is a pollutant that affects the respiratory system. The province is ordering Imperial Oil, Shell, and Suncor in Sarnia to reduce their emissions by 90%. Another facility in Mississauga must reduce the emissions by 80%. Community groups, including the environmental law charity EcoJustice, were asking the government to set a deadline earlier than 2026. EcoJustice says the 2-year delay will further affect the health of people in the area.
The government caved to industry pressure, and they've actually extended the regulations full implementation until 2029. Canada's way behind other jurisdictions, and particularly the U.S., in terms of regulating pollution from refineries.
The oil industry asked the government for an extension because it said it needed more time to make the necessary changes to the equipment and facilities.
Some of the measures that need to be put into place are they require extensive planning. And major equipment is required. Some are difficult to source, and some need to be ordered well in advance. If a part needs to be brought in from far away, it needs to be ordered. It takes time to produce the specific part, and then the facilities can't just shut down. They need to do it on a schedule that they already have, and that has to be planned well in advance.
But EcoJustice says they have already had plenty of time. They say the industry should have started upgrading their infrastructure in 2016 when they and the government started talking about updating air quality standards.
They had prioritized it. They could have started years ago in getting ready for the new sulfur dioxide standard.
EcoJustice is also disappointed the new regulations don't do anything more to address emissions in a process called flaring, where excess gases are burned off.
The thing with flaring is that the emissions are very intense and can be in a very short period of time, which causes spikes in air quality concerns. So the air quality can go up quite a bit during a flaring event because of the massive amount of sulfur dioxide that can be emitted during a flaring event, depending on what they're flaring, particularly if they're flaring something called acid gas.
But Hankey says flaring actually reduces emissions that would otherwise be going into the atmosphere.
I think everyone has a common goal. We need to reduce the emissions.
Sarnia Mayor Mike Briley isn't sure if the industry needs 2 more years to do that, but he says it has to be done in a way that doesn't put too much burden on the industry.
And the reality is our competition is Alberta, and it's the Gulf Coast in the U.S. And all we're saying is, yes, we support the environmental agenda, but you also need to look at how you're treating our industry as it relates to regulation and taxation.
The Amjanang First Nation, which sits in the shadow of an oil refinery, wanted the timeline shorter too, but CBC News was told officials there aren't ready to make a comment on the extension. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The Ontario government is reversing a decision that it made to deregulate traditional Chinese medicine. Bill 88 would have allowed more people to work in the field, but critics say it would have endangered patients by allowing unqualified people into the profession.
A decision on a regulated health profession to sneak it in with no consultation into a Ministry of Labor bill? When if the language issue was the real problem at their last cabinet meeting, after real consultation, they could have found a creative way to fix this?
The Premier had defended the change by saying people who only speak Cantonese or Mandarin were prevented from writing licensing exams, but practitioners complained they weren't consulted. Government House Leader Paul Calandra says the next version of the bill will order the Regulatory College to offer tests in Mandarin and Cantonese to remove that language barrier. Ukraine is accusing Moscow of using medieval tactics as Russian shelling intensifies on day 12 of the invasion. More than 1.7 million people have now fled to neighboring countries, but as Russian troops try to encircle and cut off major cities, there's renewed push to allow safe passage for trapped civilians. Julia Wong has the details.
Thousands of Ukrainians try and get out of the city of Lviv as volunteer medics, including those from Canada, make their way into the besieged country.
I provide support for medics. I have little medical training, but in a pinch, I can be backup.
Foreign fighters are also picking up arms. Soldiers from Mexico and the United Kingdom joining forces with Ukrainian troops.
Democracy is precious, and one man shouldn't decide that another country shouldn't have it.
This is what those fighters are up against. Shelling targeting residential neighborhoods like in Kharkiv, destroying vehicles, damaging buildings, and blowing out windows. And in Arpin, outside of Kiev, bombardment turned this bridge into rubble as Russian troops continue their advance toward the capital. Residents flee, leaving however they can, the young and the healthy carrying out the frail.
It's like a disaster. The city is almost ruined. In the district where I'm living, it's like no houses which were not bombed.
Russia says it will open up some humanitarian corridors, one of those going to Russia itself, prompting criticism from Ukraine. The EU says there could be as many as 5 million refugees fleeing Ukraine if the invasion continues, spilling into neighboring Poland and Brussels.
And I just want to live in peace and in freedom. And I hope that here it will be possible.
Nearby Romania also seeing refugees pour in.
This is a real humanitarian crisis. No one in Europe expected to see this happening again after what happened in World War II.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for more sanctions on Russia and for military aircraft to help defend his country. And late in the evening, a defiant video from Zelensky fighting back against Russian claims he's fled the capital. I'm in my office in Kiev, he says, not hiding and fearing no one, ready for whatever it takes to win this war. And he says he's not backing down in the fight for Ukraine's future. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in the UK today as part of a 5-day trip to Europe. He met with his British and Dutch counterparts to discuss the invasion of Ukraine. One of the issues that's come up is Europe's dependency on Russian oil and natural gas. Trudeau says many have started to realize that Moscow is no longer a reliable partner. Travis Donrosh reports.
A show of solidarity, a show of strength, what Justin Trudeau was hoping to demonstrate alongside his British and Dutch counterparts in London today. The Prime Minister also announcing new sanctions.
On 10 individuals complicit in this unjustified invasion. This includes former and current senior government officials, oligarchs, and supporters of Russian leadership.
The individuals come from a list compiled by jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Notably not on that list, Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, who has significant investment ties in Canada. But even as Western leaders ramp up pressure, this admission from the Dutch Prime Minister.
In the short term, it has not led to the result that they stopped the invasion. That's true.
But that's why we are resolved in being there for the long term. The courage of Ukrainians in standing up to the Russian invaders has inspired and humbled us all. And we need to show ourselves as determined to push back against Putin, against the Kremlin.
The leaders were also pressed on scaling back Europe's dependence on Russian oil and gas.
You can't simply close down use of oil and gas overnight, even from Russia.
Trudeau says Canada will support European allies in moving away from Russian energy sources, but few details from the leaders on another major part of the conflict, the growing humanitarian crisis. All three vowed to create a coalition to increase support for Ukrainian refugees, but few details on what exactly that means.
Canada has sent about $1 billion worth of financial assistance and humanitarian aid, but we have more to do.
After that news conference and a series of photo ops and handshakes, Trudeau leaves London for Latvia tonight. He'll meet with leaders of Baltic states and NATO Secretary General tomorrow. It comes as the Ukrainian president pleads with the alliance to do more as the country continues to be overtaken. Travis Stanrash, CBC News, London.
And Windsorites with family in Ukraine are doing their best to stay in touch. Some people are trying to help them come to Canada. Others, they wait, hoping they'll get a call from family soon.
Some of them are in Kyiv, some of them just managed to cross the border. Very long lines, but you know, hope is there.
Yeah. Are they trying to get into those lineups?
Some are uncertain about leaving their husbands behind, which is just heartbreaking. So it's a hard decision that they need to take as a family.
How are they getting here when they do come? Do you know?
Hopefully by plane. Well, again, we're talking about women and children. Husbands are not allowed to leave. It's devastating because it's my brothers-in-law, and it's hard, but at least the kid's gonna be safe. They're afraid of coming. This is big changes for them, but luckily for them, they have family that will support them, and we are open fully just to give them anything they want. And if the government gonna help us with the work permits and whatnot, they're always ready to go back to work.
I have a lot of cousins in Ukraine. I have some in Mariupol. They're bombing now. I'm really worried about them. That's why I'm here. So, we don't know.
You haven't had any contact with them?
I have with some of them, but not the ones from Mariupol. There was no contact with them.
When was the last time that you talked to them?
Well, my cousins in Bukovina, I talked to them yesterday. And what they're doing there is because they haven't attacked there yet, they assume they're going to, but the people are leaving Kyiv in the east and they're going to Poland, Romania, so they have to pass through where they're at. So they're feeding the people that are coming through, they're giving them shelter, and then take them to the border. And you know what? He's never going to stop until the whole world realizes that he's nothing but a piece of crap who lies all the time. He's not going to blow himself up with nuclear weapons. He's not going to do that. He's just threatening everybody, and everybody hasn't got enough backbone to fight him back. Slava Ukraini.
We pivot here. You are seeing a live presentation at Essex Town Council right now. They are going to decide tonight who will fill their open councillor seat. It's been a bit of a domino effect since Larry Snively resigned after he pleaded guilty to an Ontario Elections Act violation in January. Since then, Deputy Mayor Richard Meloche was chosen by council to be the new mayor. Ward 3 councillor Steve Bajorkman became the new deputy mayor, and so they're now looking for another Ward 3 councillor. They'll appoint someone from a list of 10. We'll bring you the latest as that information comes in. We take a live look outside. What a beautiful little sunset we got going on in Windsor tonight. We can finally see those before, well, I guess we're seeing it during the show live now. The snowflakes were falling earlier. We had rain. We had a little bit of everything after a bit of a joyful weekend. We'll see what Colette Kennedy's got in store for us this week after the break. It's a light show that never fails to impress, no matter where people are viewing that performance. This here was the scene in the skies over northern Sweden. The northern lights, also known as Aurora Borealis, appeared right after dark. Just that swirling mass, intense color. Scientists, they have some understanding of what causes the dazzling displays. They can't predict where or when they'll happen to a T, but that means that to some extent the chance really is just to look out and find the right location, the right time, and a little bit of luck there. Colette, I'm sure you've got the details on when they pop up and why they come. Your board's looking like it there now, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, just go to my app and I'll tell you exactly where, what time.
Yeah. Your Northern Lights newsletter, I believe that's what that is, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it comes out and it was a week prior that they happened, but all the news is there.
You should have been out on Friday,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, amazing, amazing spectacle. I've only ever seen the images that way, never in person. Someday, you know, we've all got those bucket list items, right? All right, let's talk about what's happened with the temperatures. I mean, obviously, huge temperature swing. These are the numbers from yesterday as of 11 a.m. So we were at our high, 16 degrees, and you can see lots of teens. St. Catharines was at 17. Although in the province, actually St. Catharines pumped up, pushed to 18, but at one point Hamilton was up to 18.4, and that was the hot spot in Ontario and Canada, I believe, as well. And then we play it forward to where we are now, and a little bit different. Yeah, Monday a little bit different. It had to be on a Monday, right? At least we got those lovely conditions for the weekend. So this is the second system that's moving through and kind of taking that snowfall with it. And there obviously were a mix at times before the temperatures were falling off. Some pockets here up towards Georgian Bay through that region could be seeing locally 8 centimeters, maybe even a little bit more than that, and into eastern Ontario. But it's moving away pretty quickly. So left in its wake, still some stronger winds, enough to drive a few flurries. The real travel concerns are the areas you see here in this turquoise blue. That's where the winter weather travel advisories are now, and they've sort of been eroding. You just see that? Just as I said that, some more were dropped. So they're kind of traveling with the system as they would, and we're getting improving conditions back towards the southwest. Now, still a few of those flurries. The winds will be improving, and the cloud deck too, so we'll get into some sunshine tomorrow, but later in the day, maybe a few more clouds, and then this is, as we get into midweek, we're definitely going to be seeing some more clouds pushing in. So enjoy the sun that we will have tomorrow, some of that snowfall from this system. The estimated amounts we're seeing, in a lot of cases, really hard to tell, right? Because the ground's warm from yesterday, maybe layering on the grass, but kind of just disappearing on the roadways. So the somewhat stronger winds, they do ease as we go into tomorrow, but then late tomorrow, they'll actually pick up again. So quickly, let me just push you through the numbers tonight. A range of -3 to -7, but wind chills will be cool tomorrow morning. Make sure the kids are prepared for that. And then 3 degrees, and then we get a little bit above seasonal for a few days there. Not teens, Chris, but jumping temperatures a little bit.
That's okay. That's okay. It's better than looking at the gas prices, right? There's a little consistency here in this.
Yeah, $3 a gallon. Oh, wait, we're not there yet. Okay.
We're not there yet. No, we're doing okay. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, coming up after the break, if you are tired of the gas prices but excited by the snow, maybe a sled dog is the option for you. We'll take a look at one of the world-famous races next. One of the key leaders of the so-called Freedom Convoy truck protests, Tamira Leach, has been granted bail, and this is after being denied earlier in February. You hear the cheers there. An Ottawa judge ruling that the 49-year-old can be released from jail if certain conditions are met. She must leave the nation's capital in the next 24 hours. She can't have contact with other protest organizers and must refrain from using social media. She was behind the now halted GoFundMe campaign that raised more than $10 million to support the protest. She was arrested and charged on February 17th. The 50th running of the world's most famous sled dog race is underway. That's north of Anchorage, Alaska.
1, go. And we're off.
There they go. 49 teams of dogs and mushers took the official start Sunday in the Iditarod. That's an event which takes about 9 days to complete from start to finish. Now, this year's overall trail, it's been restored to its traditional 1,000-mile or 1,600-kilometer distance from Anchorage to the Bering Sea town of Nome. Now, after the pandemic forced the shortening of the course last year, they decided to bring it to full force. 17 women competing in this year's race, one of the world's few high-profile sporting events where women and men compete on equal footing. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. That's where we'll post the update on Essex Council as they look to appoint somebody for Ward 3. That's it for us. Have a great night.